Recording. All right, we are rolling.
Sound speeds.
Sound, as we say in the biz, sound speeds. And I don't know how de facto I became the sound guy.
You volunteered.
I did, but you brought the mics. I just kind of started putting everything on.
That's good. It shows good initiative. It's that go get 'em attitude that you need in early development.
I am enthusiastic. My skill level is questionable, but my enthusiasm is high. All right, what do you think? We ready?
I think so.
Should we do this?
Let's do it.
And we are off on the inaugural episode of Walkumentary.
Well, that may be the place to start, is what's in a name?
Does that mean that you are not feeling Walkumentary?
I think Walkumentary is a great name for a documentary podcast about walking, but for a walk about documentaries, I don't feel like it's a great name.
On your left.
You're listening to Doc Walks with Ben and Keith.
Well, I'm Ben Steinbauer and you are Keith Maitland. And what are we doing, Keith?
Well, I'm not sure what you're doing, but I am feeling a little silly walking down the street in Austin, Texas, talking to my friend who I go on bi-weekly walks with without the benefit of a recorder, where we walk and talk and walk and dock. We dock walk.
We dock walk. Whoa, crossing the street, about to get hit.
Here we go. Okay, so we're walking and talking.
And talking documentary. Dock walking here in Austin, Texas.
We're walking past a baseball field near Barton Springs Road on the way to the hike and bike trail next to the lake. What are we doing here, Ben?
I've told you from the beginning, I just love our walks and our talks. And I thought that it would be fun to try to record them, pull some guests in, and as working documentary filmmakers, see if we can't make something of value for other people to listen to.
I think that there could be some value to that.
Yes.
Taking a look at like the creative approaches to documentary filmmaking, that's my favorite thing to talk about, but also looking at the industrial side of how do you make a career out of this art form? How do you react to the state of the world politically and socially through the work, figuring out how to keep the lights on and pay your mortgage if you're lucky enough to have one. And so that's what I kind of hope we get into on these. And as we reach out to guests and have people join us on these walks, I'll be looking for new perspectives and expansions on those themes. How about you?
Yes, I think anytime I talk to another director about their career, I feel like I always learn a lot.
I remember when I was getting started, going to panels at South by Southwest or Hot Docs or something like that, and watching these kind of like name brand filmmakers sit up on the panel. You know, people like Gordon Quinn or Errol Morris or Paul Steckler or somebody like that who would say, oh, it just keeps getting harder and harder. I could never make the films I made early in my career. Now it's just so impossible. And I remember as like a young emerging filmmaker being really annoyed by those fuckers. Like, shut up. You're up there on the panel. You just made another great film in a series of films. And we're out here just trying to figure out how to catch a little bit of that edge. And so listening to them complain about how hard it's gotten never really spoke to me. So I don't want to become one of those old guys. I do see what they're saying now, but at the same time, I think you have to be kind of a hopeless optimist to do this work. And even though like most of our contemporaries and the people that we followed are not shy about grumbling about the realities and the confusions and the challenges of this work in this industry, if you're not waking up every morning thinking, today's the day, I'm gonna figure it out. Today's the day, I'm gonna crack the code. I don't know what else gets you through.
So are you waking up every morning thinking today's the day?
Not consciously. I don't know if today's the day that I'm going to figure out the industry or figure out my career, but today's definitely the day to play with a new idea. That's every day for sure.
I love that. And that's part of what this podcast is for me, is talking about our careers as documentary filmmakers and the highs, the lows, gutter balls, the strikes.
The constant state of confusion is the way I like to look at my career.
Which I love to hear, of course. But every time we go for a walk, you tell me some amazing story about a meeting that you've had or a project that is getting funded by a very impressive company. and I love the movies that you make, and I love our friendship, and I love talking documentaries with you. So when the idea came about, I think we both were like, why would we do that?
Yeah. Why? And why would we ruin a good thing?
And yet, here we are. It's almost like we can't help ourselves.
Well, I think you have an infectious enthusiasm, and I had a hard time saying no, even though I question and doubt it, and I doubt that will go away anytime soon.
Well, don't you feel that way when you're making your documentaries?
Yes, that is the only way I know how to feel.
Well, then I think by that logic, we're onto something.
What you might be hearing is the sound of grackles. Now, I don't know a lot about grackles, but I don't know of any other town that has the sheer amount of grackles that Austin has at this time of year.
And what would you say a grackle sounds like?
I mean, they grack at you. That's the name. They're gracking it up there in the trees, grackling around on the ground.
It is a particularly unsettling sound, the grackle.
I think it's like a warning that at any moment there might be a grack attack.
So what's your origin story? How did you get started in documentary?
I always wanted to be a filmmaker since I was 12 or 13 years old, and I made little movies with my friends back home in my hometown, Plano, Texas. I was really fortunate to create and play with a group of like super creative guys that I played music with and made fun videos with and, you know, kind of grew up with. And so I got into filmmaking pretty early. And then after college, I moved to New York and was a apprentice assistant director through the Directors Guild, working on like big budget features and TV series and, you know, and scripted. And then I met my wife, Sarah Wilson, documentary photographer and now cinematographer and producer, but it was working, well, assisting Sarah and helping her with her work, doing documentary photography projects, that the idea of focusing on documentary became real for me.
Love that.
But through the impact of Sarah and her work, I've gotten a chance to see what it is to make movies by entering into an existing community and not just expressing, you know, kind of an ego-driven story that's born out of my mind, but by reflecting some kind of reality that exists out in the world. So I don't know, I guess does that answer your question? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, like why do you make documentaries?
I do it because I want to say something, and I want to say something in a way that brings people closer together. I want to get a chance to see my own life reflected up on screen, you know, through the experience of someone else, a chance to kind of learn who I am. And I want to share that with people. I want other people to get a chance to see who they are through these stories. So that's kind of what draws me in, is like the universality of experience that exists even in the most unique and peculiar stories. That's what I'm looking for.
I love it.
Can you hear the sound of these cottonwood trees? How did you get started with all this? Like, where did you begin? How did you get started with all this?
Well, my origin story is that I always wanted to be a writer and thought that that's what I would do as a voracious reader when I was a kid. And I got into what I like to call the gateway drug authors in high school, like the Charles Bukowskis and the Beats, so Kerouac and Ginsberg and Burroughs and all those guys whose thing was to go have these wild adventures and then write about them in this poetic way and make the story of the adventure this sort of story of human experience. And so I did a version of that when I graduated high school. I didn't go straight to college. I moved to Monterey, California. I loved John Steinbeck. I thought maybe I would be an author. I wrote a lot of really terrible short stories, smoked a lot of non-filtered cigarettes. Then when it came time for me to go back to college, I went to the University of Kansas, and I had a creative writing professor there essentially get rid of me. He told me my writing was very visual and that I should look into taking a film class. And at the time I was like, this guy gets me. But now, having taught undergrads, I realized that he was basically saying, there's the door, get out of here. And so the first class that I could take in the film department was a documentary production class. And all the things sort of clicked. And that was how I started. And I literally took the camera that my dad used to shoot our family vacations with and I got a piece of software that had just come out called Final Cut Pro 1.0, and I just started making documentaries. They started getting into film festivals, and that was 2000, and I've been at it basically ever since. Whoa, what in the world just happened?
That just pop hard on you? Whoa, I could hear it. What just happened? It might be just me. My electromagnetic field is strong.
This is the mic telling me to wrap it up. Okay. Hello, hello. How's that? Is that working better? Check. Damn it. Well, check. Here, let's walk a little bit and then you can hear it. Check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Check. Chest checkers. Check. The skeleton slipped in the shower. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. Hello, bike riders. Hello, children. Here's a child bike rider, putting them all together.
Sounds great to me.
Really? No hits? Huh, okay. How are you feeling so far in this podcast?
So far, what I like is the sounds of the trail and describing those sounds.
Yep.
And how is that traffic noise? Is it the kind of traffic noise that pulls you in closer and says, I really want to hear what these guys have to say right now? Or is it the kind of traffic noise that says, we should edit out this whole chunk of the trail?
It's probably the kind of traffic noise that one of us will spend a lot of time trying to filter out of the audio.
Which is tough because this is, by design, a podcast that's meant to embrace the environment of the sounds of the world, natural and otherwise.
Much like documentary, where you don't have control of things like traffic. And if you're out in the world, you're gonna hear some traffic.
I do love that rhythm though, of like the da-dunk, 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 da-dunk of the cars coming above.
Here, let's listen to a little bit of that.
I think I was drawn to documentary filmmaking because it's a place that invariably you have to kind of give up control. And I think so much of my life and my relationship to this world is kind of a negotiation with control. You know, I'm not a verite filmmaker. I'm not a fly on the wall kind of guy. There's a lot of construction going on and a lot of kind of structural decision making, but it's almost all in reaction to an initial authentic push into a world, a community, a story.
That dovetails kind of nicely with what we are talking about with documentaries, and those sort of happy accidents and coincidences are part of the thing that I love about docs, and it sort of taught me to follow those things. Like whenever I encounter those, I know that sort of onto something, and if I trust that the imperfection or the hurdle or the chance encounter is actually gonna make whatever I'm doing better, I almost every time that's what happens. Sort of life intervenes to sort of tell you what the story wants to be rather than the story you think you're telling.
Yeah, I think that's always the case. You know, I don't think I've ever made a film I've never made a film where I knew the third act. And I don't think I've ever made a film where at some point afterwards I didn't say, I thought we were making a film about this, but it turned out to be a film about that.
Oh my goodness. I'm having fun. Keith, I have to say I like this.
I'm glad you like it. Let's talk about our frailties and vulnerabilities.
Oh, please. Okay. You start. How frail are you feeling?
Happy talking about my vulnerabilities. I feel like I say the word I a lot. And a lot of times that I'm talking about my approach to filmmaking and I say I, what I really mean is we, because there is almost never a moment where I am working in a vacuum or working without the assistance, input, and always like additive nature of my primary editor and close collaborator, Austin Reedy, bevy of wonderful producers like Megan Gilbride, Melissa Glassman, Veronica Maciel, and interns, we always have interns that we rely on. And so anyway, that is a vulnerability I will admit. Like I feel like as a director, producer, I often get far more credit than work deserves. I like to think that I get more blame as well, but that's not always the case. And so anyway, that's a vulnerability. When I hear myself talking to you walking down this trail, taking note of all the variety of birds, there's a little voice in the back of my head saying, stop talking about yourself. Part of the reason we do what we do, I think, is the ability to see the world and present the world from behind the camera, rarely using our own voices, although, with full acknowledgement that like the work that we present is a manipulation of reality that very much represents kind of the collective voice of our team as much as the people we point the cameras at. Anyway, that's a vulnerability I wanted to acknowledge, and now I want you to make me feel better about it.
I love that, and I fully agree. Filmmaking is a team sport, 100%. I similarly could rattle off lots of other producers and collaborators, and that's part of actually what I love about every single project that I do, is that it's sort of like building like a family structure with each project. And I really admire about you that you have consistent collaborators that you go back to again and again and again. And I have that as well, but I also like to kind of switch it up depending on what the project needs. And I think that is a big part of the commercial filmmaking informing my doc filmmaking, because that is a thing that happens all the time in commercial filmmaking. So you end up working with a lot broader cross section of crew. And a lot of times, sometimes like the TV crew that I use would not be appropriate for a commercial shoot.
Right.
And vice versa.
Yeah, no, you've definitely been exposed to a lot more craftspeople and collaborators than I have. I've kind of self-selected both by nature of like my network of trusted associates and also my inability to pay very well, a certain group of people. But I'm reminded of the premiere of the first feature doc I ever made. It's called The Eyes of Me. It premiered at South by in 2009. And my producing partner on that was my very old friend and frequent creative collaborator, Patrick Floyd. And as we went up on stage for the Q&A, and as the credits kind of continued to roll, he said, this right here is my favorite part of the movie, and it's the 100+ names of people that roll by that it took to get to this moment, and we should all take a moment to acknowledge them.
I love that, and I think it is very important to acknowledge all of the people that helped us get here, for sure. We were talking about synchronicity, and my wife, Katie, got an email from a friend asking her to produce her podcast. Katie said she's very busy. Her husband is actually starting a podcast, and if she were going to produce anybody's, it should really be his, but she can't even do that because we have 2 young children. She works full time. So Katie says, let me think about some other producer friends I know. Send me anything you have on it. A couple days go by. Last night, I am getting ready for this podcast when this woman sends her a description of her podcast in which she is planning to take walks and talk to people while she's walking and talking. What are the odds of that happening? Completely unrelated, had no idea, very different topic, but what are the odds that not in the same month, not in the same week, literally the night before our inaugural Walk and Talk podcast, a woman reaches out to my wife to ask her to help produce a Walk and Talk podcast. That's one of those things where you think, like, sure, it's in the ether, not claiming that we're brilliant enough to have some idea that nobody else has thought of before, but the timing of that is what's remarkable.
It's with great auspice.
Yeah.
And so when you come across a synchronistic moment like that, what does it mean to you, or what do you gain from that acknowledgement?
Well, in that particular moment, what I gained was, oh, we're onto something.
Ooh.
Like, that's interesting. If somebody else is thinking about doing it and it's out there, the idea is percolating out in the world, then us picking up on it and playing with it is what needs to happen. And in Rick Rubin's book on creativity, which I love, he talks about how the artist's job is to be an antenna and to pick up signals in the world for things that want to be made. So whether they're stories or songs or podcasts or paintings or whatever, they are looking for a home, and your job as the artist is to recognize them and give them that home.
the rock and roll photographer Scott Newton, who's a guy that I've had the pleasure of pointing a camera at quite a bit and also become friends with, always talks about the relationship of the muse and how creativity is a process that exists outside of ourselves, and that if we are tuned acutely to it, it can transmit through us. And the idea of the muse actually being the source of the word music, right? It's of the muse. It's an expression that comes from without and passes within, only to go out again.
I never knew that was the root of music, was the muse. That is fascinating.
I am not positive about that, but that is what Scott says, and I think he's right. He must be.
All right. Well, see, we're making progress, Keith. It's all coming together.
I think it's such a privilege to be able to do this work, but most of the time I feel like I and just about every one of the people like you and that I consider like my colleagues and are also just like suffering through a major sense of like a circle of confusion at all times.
Ooh, that's a great title, Circle of Confusion.
And so I think like this is a world of confusion that we operate in, but you also have to take into account that so many things had to go right to get to this moment of confusion. And, so many people start out wanting to do a version of what we have, stubbornly refused not to do, that it's a privilege.
I absolutely agree. And when I have taught students in the past, that's one of the things that I always sort of fumble my way into saying is that, if you're a dentist, you go to dental school, there's a very clear path. You graduate from dental school, you get hired by a dental practice, maybe you start your own, and you get patients and you clean their teeth, and that's your job. With filmmaking, it doesn't matter who you talk to. Everybody's path is unique and different, and no two people have the same success or failure or origin stories. And what ends up being the case is that a lot of times people decide to stop doing it, and it becomes too insecure as a lifestyle to go on making projects that are essentially on spec, that you hope people will like, or that you can get people to give you money to make. And what I have always been attracted to about filmmaking, both the filmmakers I love and what I've tried to do with my career, is think about it as a body of work. Is that it's not just the one thing you're doing right now. I want to look back when I'm an old man and be proud of what is on my archival hard drives and hope that my kids or some younger filmmakers or somebody gets some inspiration and some spark out of it. And that's sort of like an imprint of a life well lived and an interesting, adventurous spirit. And if I think about it that way, and not the funding for the next project or where the last movie premiered or did my last TV show get picked up or whatever it is.
Who lied to your face and stabbed you in the back.
Oh, I can tell you exactly
who that is.
Their names.
Please.
Yes. But that's really the thing. Like you said, it's a privilege. It's amazing that we just get to come down here. And look, we landed where we're standing right now is on the other side of the fence from the iconic Barton Springs naturally fed swimming hole here in Austin.
Let's go get some nice audio of the runoff.
Of the water. Okay. Here we go. We're getting some audio of the water falling from Barton Springs on the one side into Barking Springs on the other. So as we were recording the water falling here on that side, I looked down and noticed that an XLR cable had come unplugged and that we may have just gone through that whole scene there with one of our mics not plugged into the recorder.
Professionals.
We were too busy being profound to think about actually recording the audio. Audio problems with Ben and Keith.
Here is why 99% of podcasts take place sitting down. Ooh, whoa, look at that thing.
Oh, wow. That is a beautiful brown, slender bird with a sharp beak and kind of blue. I don't know what bird is.
I don't know. See, I feel like if we continue to do this, we are going to learn a lot about the birds of Austin and wherever else this journey takes us. And eventually we'll just be doing a bird watching podcast, which will probably have a much bigger audience.
I think it's fair to say there's probably more bird watchers than there are. Oh, and there it goes.
Hey, did you hear those two dipshits talking about independent film? No, I'm too busy listening to two dipshits talking about birds.
That's actually a hell of a name for a podcast. Two dipshits talking about birds. Next time on Dock Walks.
We're going to Sundance.
Yes, we are. And I have fought going until I had a movie in the festival, but Keith convinced me to go anyways.
We're going to have a great time. I feel pretty good about it. We're going to catch up with some old friends, hopefully see a few movies, talk to people on Main Street, and take our dock walking out on the road.
To new heights. That's it. See you next time, everybody.
Dock Walks is created, produced, and edited by my friend Ben Steinbauer of The Bear.
Hello. And my friend Keith Maitland of Go Valley.
Thanks for tuning in.